home one of our PhD graduates. Kinshuk Jerath is going to talk about a topic that is no less multi-channel than any of the other ones we've heard, and we haven't heard that much about, which is about the service context in a multi-channel setting. And so Kinshuk is now a professor at Carnegie Mellon University.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks to WeMe, to MSI, to everybody for having me here. It's, as Eric said, they like to see me here, and I really, really like to come back here. I come to Philadelphia at least 4 times a year, I keep telling people. So, so today I'm going to talk about the relative efficacy of customer support channels. So we've been talking a lot about, how do you contact customers, how you get them to buy. This is really turning it topsy-turvy, like turning it on its head. We're saying that when we contact firms, what are the different channels that we use, and how do they pay off to the firm and to the customer? So it's looking at that kind of a problem. Yeah. So customer support channels, it's a major determinant of customer satisfaction. It's typically after the product is sold. It's important for each and every company, each and every industry. So it's a very widely applicable problem. There are 2 types of channels. One is assisted channels, and one is self-service channels. So assisted channel is you call someone, or you contact someone by telephone, by maybe email, which is all that Amazon allows, by SMS, by live chat, whatnot, right? But you get a person on the other end who kind of guides you bit by bit and say, hey, I have this question. The other is self-service channel, which is, so there's a website typically, and then there are interactive voice response units, which I'm sure all of us hate. So I'll just focus on the website. This websites is typically you go there, and typically information is arranged moderately well, and you can have a lot of your questions answered. I'll actually just focus on the telephone and the web. Okay, I'll strip out all of the channels, and the company that we're working with actually does not rely on other channels all that much, so it's okay for this particular setting. The real thing that's driving is really that it's so much cheaper. Okay, so I'll focus on the telephone versus the web. So really the question is, what is the relative value of the web and the telephone to customers? There has been previous work on it, but not all that much actually, which is very surprising. A lot of it is very survey-based. So there are survey-based studies on satisfaction from and adoption of self-service channels. Okay, so what is our setting? Our setting is, it's a health insurance company, a very big one. So it's a health insurance service setting. People get their insurance plans, and after they get their plan, they go to the doctor, they have some claims filed themselves or typically by the doctor's office. Okay. So the claims coming, and claims lead to an information need, and that's when you contact the firm. So customers call or visit the web to resolve a query regarding a claim or maybe a bunch of claims, and then you end up calling or something like that. The web provides details on plan coverage and on membership details, on tracking costs and claim status, on accessing personal health records. So you actually get all of this in a booklet when you sign up for the plan, but that booklet is like 100 pages with lots of fine print, so nobody reads it. And it's very unreasonable to expect that people would know anything about these plans. Now, the telephone provides all of the above and more. Again, see that telephone is preferred a little bit more. So when you call, you get your questions partially or fully or even more than fully resolved. What is the difference between the web and calling someone? Getting to the model, for every customer, given the times at which claims arrive, we need to model 2 processes. So we are given the times at which claims arrive. We do not model claim arrival. So that's part of your answer, right? You just say that claims have arrived. Now, what is the time of the arrival of the next query? When do you end up asking a question? And when you ask a question, which choice of channel do you go for? What channel do you go for? So this is the timeline for a customer. And you just start off at the left end. And first there's a claim. And after that, this person makes a telephone call, does nothing for some time. Then there's a claim, another claim, another claim. Then there's a telephone call following these. Then another claim, and a web visit, and then another claim. So it's just something that I just made up. So it's this red thing for the first time interval given by that interval. There's no information need. Then there's a claim, so it increases. Okay. Then the person, because of this claim, tends to make a phone call. So this decreases, and know that I'm even allowing this to be negative, which means that maybe this person told you a lot of stuff and you're good for some time. Then there is another claim, so this need increases again. It increases again. It increases again. And then it's high enough that you make another phone call of this information, and every claim increases it, every phone call or query decreases it. And it's very reminiscent of a very nice paper by Wendy Moe and Pete Fader, basically where they have this model of it's a model of purchasing, but they say that you keep visiting a kind of a website, maybe online, and every time you visit, you kind of tend to be nudged more towards purchasing. And when you purchase, you kind of, you fulfill that need, and then you start off again. So it's very reminiscent of that. Yep. And so this is the basic idea behind the model. Okay. And how this will, given some data, how can we work with it? You can see that if on average, you could say, if after telephone calls, people tend to call much later, then it's fulfilling a greater need, versus after a web visit, maybe your calls tend to be sooner than compared to the calls after telephone calls. So it's giving you it's not giving you as much information, and that's kind of what we would expect to see. The thing is, how much? I mean, we do expect phone to work better than web, but how much? We have this data. It's not a lot of data actually. It's bare minimum we could get. Really, so we have the data of each claim along with the customer liability on that claim. Then we have the data of each query, when they made a query, and whether the query was on the phone or on the web. So that's the data set we have. So basically, a web, you could make a phone call and still make a web visit. That can happen in this model, but and you can make a web visit and then make a phone call. But a web visit is not going to make you more likely to get a phone call. So that is something that has to be fixed. After 10 claims and one phone call, it actually increases by 4 times, so 0.2. So you're much more likely to go to the web after you've made a phone call. You're much more likely to go to the web after you made a web visit. But the interesting thing is that these two numbers again kind of come close, 0.19 and 0.18. So really, this whole thing shows that basically 2 web visits do the work of 1 phone call, while a phone call is 20 times as expensive. So there's a big gap there. In every web visit, if you could give twice the information that you're currently giving, then it would match up a phone call. Okay? There's a lot of future work to be done. So Scott's point, I did think about that. I just didn't do it. Multiple dimensions of information. Maybe the phone is more effective for when you need unstructured information, and the web is more effective when you have very structured questions. Right? So you really do at least this structured, unstructured has to be incorporated. And it would be really nice if I can get some data on call and web visit characteristics, because that would help me out quite a bit. There can be learning effects, as Jeff was saying. Maybe the first few phone calls and the first few web visits are more important, and then you kind of get comfortable with your policy and you know what's going on. Or maybe it's a chronic disease, so early on you need to call more, and later on you don't need to talk to them as much. And then, of course, the idea here is also to do this OM kind of thing where we can generate predictions of future call and web volume and use that in some kind of a queuing load balancing system, and also maybe to direct customers to the right channel, especially if we do the multiple dimensions of information stuff. Okay? And finally, there are various other applications of this. So it's really a model of multi-channel contact. And it could be, right now it's from customers to the firm, and we can easily incorporate various other channels, not a problem. And with small modifications, it's also applicable to most multi-channel contact settings. And this would be kind of a generalization of the Moe and Fader paper, that so you're contacting customers through catalogs, through personalized offers, through targeted advertising and whatnot, and everything is nudging them more and closer towards a purchase or towards shopping or whatever your metric might be. And how do they add up? What is the total impact of all of this? So what is the relative value of each contact channel or each contact? So this contact channel is from the firm to the customer, and also like is the whole more than the sum of the parts? Like was what Scott was talking about yesterday. We could get at that kind of questions also with this. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Well, if I could make one concluding comment, which might sound self-serving since Kinshuk was leveraging some of my own research. The big takeaway from this talk isn't that the phone call is worth 50% more than the web. I mean, we know that that's unique to this data set and all the caveats that Kinshuk put out. The key is that picture he showed with the red lines. The idea of taking a very complex phenomenon and breaking it down into kind of digestible bits and then telling a story about them. And I think that shows the kind of conversation that the different species represented in the room ought to be having. So I think it's great to put that forward, from not backing away from it and showing what we really do for a living. With that, let us break for lunch. The Anuj Kumar Research Festival will continue at, let's try to be ready at 1 sharp. Stay on schedule. Thanks very much.